This week, the Democrats swept the key races and the referendums, with Prop 50 passing in California and actual leftists winning major seats, like Mamdani, a socialist who beat out ex-Governor Cuomo for New York City mayor. Mamdani will have to deal with the city's police state, an angry president, but there's no debating that his victory and all the other GOP losses across the country represent an early referendum on Trump and Project 2025. My guest this week ran for federal office not once, not twice, but 3 times. So she knows a little bit about what it's like as a Black woman to face not only the GOP and the far right, but also the Democratic machine. A Florida-based former Navy JAG officer, civil rights attorney, and firm executive director, Pam Keith is everything you'd want in a leader. Unafraid, unbought, unbossed, and all that. Plus, like Mamdani, she's captivating, as you'll see. Yet, unlike Mamdani, she didn't win any of her political bids. Why? Was it geography, race, gender, timing? We'll find out. This is Awkward, and this is Global Warning. Don't forget, you gotta like, you gotta comment, subscribe, and become a super fan for those exclusive extras. On episode 3, Pam Keith takes us behind the scenes, discussing her runs for office, the most recent races, the state of the Democratic Party as opposition to the far-right agenda, and much more. Pam, thank you so much for joining me. I know everyone wants to hear about your runs for office, but before we even go there, give me your rundown of election season, November 2025. What are the biggest wins? Were there any losses? And what can we do to turn election victories into actual movement momentum?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think there are a lot of messages that came across that election night. Different kinds of Democrats were able to win in different areas. I don't think you can say that Mamdani speaks for all of the victories, or that Spanberger and Sherrill speak for all of the victories. They don't. However, the pushback against Republican leadership, I don't think you can. That's the thread that seems to be common to all of the victories from coast to coast, from north to south, be it federal, be it state, be it mayor's races, school board races, referendums, you name it. The voters came out and voted against the Republicans. That's the common thread that we can see. I think there are some seriously important tectonic reverberations that are going through both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, because you really cannot, it is impossible to overstate how exceptional the Mamdani campaign was. Having run 3 campaigns, there are so many X's and O's you have to get right. Even though it was a mayoral race, it was a mayoral race in a population that is bigger than most senatorial races, right? The population that he had to connect to was bigger, more diverse than most senatorial races, and certainly the vast majority of congressional races. So if you want to take, by comparison, look at AOC, how her win was so eye-opening. Well, her win was a small slice of what Mamdani had to carry. And so you think about how he did that. He did that with substantially less money. And I don't think people pay enough attention to the fact that New York has public funding of elections, which is something that every democracy-loving person should be fighting for. But that he did it with sort of this insurgent, he sort of took from AOC that insurgent idea, that concept that every person I can get to knock a door is worth $10,000 in a contribution. And he ran with that. But he also had, as many people have noted, exceptional message discipline. He had an incredible, and he himself is a nimble, creative, funny, warm, disarming personality. And it was also, I think, a little bit of a perfect timing situation as well. I don't think you could have found a more unappealing candidate than Andrew Cuomo for people on the left. So there was a variety.
I definitely agree.
But putting all of that aside, I have to say, the boogeyman of democratic socialism took a major blow to the head, because the belief that calling yourself a democratic socialist is a sort of political third rail that necessarily means you are unelectable. I just don't think that's true anymore. And I think his win is so visible, both here and abroad, that and so inspiring, that you're going to see literally hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates running as democratic socialists proudly on a populist platform.
I love that. And what an incredible answer. This is exactly why I had you on. And what an interesting perspective, comparing it in size and scope to AOC. I totally agree when it comes to, more politicians becoming further empowered to truly be themselves on the campaign trail and to actually run, perhaps when they were afraid to previously. But what about that movement momentum? Do you see this translating? And you did mention abroad, and I think historically abroad, protest movements and elections have been more inextricably connected than here. But do you see here or abroad Mamdani's victory having influence over more than just elections?
I absolutely think so. I mean, I think part of it, like I said, part of it that sort of overt demonization of Muslims and the overt Islamophobia turned a lot of people off. I also think that he put to rest the notion that all Jewish people firmly support Israel and what Israel does, and the fact that he was able to pull, 36% of the Jewish vote, it, to me, is extremely telling. But I also think that the most important thing, in my opinion, that he brought to the table is that it is okay to campaign for big things. I think what we have, and the contrast, the juxtaposition is, we have Democrats in Washington, D.C. fighting tooth and nail for subsidies that are still too expensive for most people, right? And what he said is, it's okay to actually campaign on something as bold as Medicare for All and single payer health care, because I don't see a great merit in fighting for the health care that most of us still can't afford and still find crippling, right? If we're going to fight for free health care. Fight for the thing that will change people's lives forever. Fight for something that's going to completely take out the insurance company middleman that serves no societal purpose other than to make shareholders wealthy. Like, to me, I love that Zohran Mamdani said universal childcare, and asked, why is it that we fully understand the merit of K through 12 or even pre-K, but we don't understand the merit of having childcare so that people have the peace of mind to go to work and actually earn the money to raise a family. I love that he went big, but he also was smart enough to not go so big that it was inconceivable or unable to be attained. He picked three things. He was so on message about those three things. He knew chapter, verse, and footnotes. He is not a flash in the pan, he's a wonk. He is a true policy wonk who can talk about regulation and obstacles in government. He actually knows what he's talking about. I love a policy wonk.
What a rarity.
It's such a rarity to have somebody that has that kind of social dynamism, that kind of warmth and cultural fluidity, and also be this intellect and really dig into the weeds of policy. He is a unique political creature, and I don't want to ever say that what he has done can be replicated, but what he has done can be an inspiration or a blueprint for others to take on, square on the things that most people do actually care about, which is, I need to be able to afford this life. Exactly. I need to be able to afford this life. And what
perfect.
And what Mamdani was saying was and I think more and more candidates on the left are saying is, the fat cats with their Rolexes and their 5 houses telling us that we would be damaged by the peace of mind they have in full access to healthcare, full access to transportation, full access to housing, full access to everything. And the peace of mind that comes with that, and the joy and the grace that comes with that, shouldn't be for all of us. It would be
It's
terrible if all of us had that lack of
yeah,
fear and pressure and stress.
it's very clear that they enjoy the status quo and want to keep it that way. And not actually, that's not even a fair statement anymore. They want to expand that polarization. And that's why I also appreciate your focus on economics, because I believe that across political lines, across the social construct of race lines and everything else, we can all connect as being part of the 99%. You mentioned Medicare for All. That's a great example of one of the things that could benefit the working poor, the unhoused, and everybody else, the shrinking middle class, and something very close to my heart. There's so much illness in my family, so much disability, and that's a struggle for obviously not only us, but so many other people. And in spite of all these positives we saw this week, maybe a week or two ago, it became fact, or as close to fact as anything can be, that, in spite of 2 in 3 Americans being one paycheck away from homelessness, in Utah, they're building a literal concentration camp for unhoused people, modeled after Alligator Auschwitz. So what does this tell us about our possible future? Yes, we may have more empowered local organizers, more empowered, true to self politicians. But what we're fighting, I haven't seen in my lifetime.
Nor have I. Although, if we're honest, we haven't seen it where it might affect white people. It's always been there when it affects Black people, right? Like the work camp life is the prison population in Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and always has been, right?
Yes.
So let's be
Yes.
honest about that.
Yes.
I will say that what we are seeing when Trump got elected was this sort of put on steroids, the mentality of the oligarchic mindset that they are uniquely endowed with the skills and the right to extract value out of this world, right, to their benefit. And that somehow their intelligence or their cleverness entitles them to run the game in a way that ensures the maximum extraction of value from whatever they put their hands on. And what we are seeing is that mindset is now going beyond the 1%, and it's trickling down to the 5% to the 10%. And you see this, which is, you see all these layoffs. Why are all these layoffs happening? They're not necessary. They're happening because the CEO set is telling themselves that employees are feeling themselves too much. We need to make the job market bad so that they'll accept lower wages and they'll accept lower benefits. So they collude on that. They collude on, we need to not have portable healthcare because people will stay in bad jobs if their employer is the only one that connects them to healthcare. So we got to make sure that they don't have portable or affordable healthcare, and that there's a big boogeyman out there. We don't want an Affordable Care Act. We don't want an exchange where you can go be an entrepreneur and get healthcare that you can actually afford. We want you to be somebody's minion and somebody's doorstop and somebody's slave. That's what we want. And if you look at it macroscopically and you look at all the dots connected, what are they trying to create? They're trying to create an America where Americans are afraid, alone, financially unstable, powerless, and angry at each other all the time.
You nailed it. And that's what people experience on the micro level now as a result of that. So I'm assuming these types of choices that are being made at the highest levels and the the oligarchical collusion, or the trillions spent on war, policing, prisons, and surveillance, disproportionately targeting Black, brown, and indigenous people, are the types of things that caused you to run for office. We don't have a lot of time left, but okay, I knew I was right. So was there any inflection point? I loved the way you started your last response, because as you put it, this has always affected certain people. It's now hitting white people, which is why there's such a massive response. Was there an inflection point at any point growing up or in your early career? And then let's close it out with what everyone's dying to know. How do you overcome, as a more left candidate, the centrist Dem machine?
Well, it's not like I was successful. However, I will tell you that I went into politics because I felt like I was uniquely positioned to address. I had a platform of my own. I didn't want to just be another vote on the Democratic platform. I wanted to explain things and advocate for things and be a pragmatist. And to me, so I was one of the first people who ran nationally on Medicare for All, and single payer. In the election, in the 2016 election, I was out there talking about the lack of a necessity for this insurance middleman. Like, what is the point of insurance? Like, what does it do for us, right? I believed that there were practical, pragmatic solutions to so many things. Veterans care was a big issue for me because I'm a veteran. Why is it that we always have money to go to war and to make warriors, but not to care for warriors? So I ran on the idea that the veterans budget, the VA budget, has to be part of the military budget, and that every time that you increase military spending, you have to concomitantly increase VA spending, and it has to be proportional. And every veteran I talked to loved that idea, be they Democrat, Republican, or independent. That was a pragmatic solution to this constant underfunding of the needs of veterans, whom we chew up and spit out, be it through the way we treat people with PTSD, the way we treat people who have mental health issues, addiction issues, domestic violence issues, and the list goes on, right? So I ran not because I wanted to be a cog in the Democratic machine. And the problem that I came into was that the machine was only interested in candidates that they were certain would be cogs in the machine. And so I am incredibly excited about someone like Graham Plattner, like somebody like Zoran Mamdani. I'm not claiming I know everything about every candidate out there, but I am excited about candidates who stand aside and say, I'm not trying to be a cog in anybody's machine, right? I am here to talk about the issues and the answers. And that's what I did when I ran. I mean, on environmental issue, I remember I was completely undermined by Big Sugar in Florida because I wanted the government to use eminent domain to take Big Sugar land for the purpose of Everglades restoration and preservation.
There are great uses of eminent domain. My mom did that, and it was like one of the first local organizing victories I saw. It meant so much. She saved hundreds of acres of open space, marshland in Connecticut. And obviously there's a ton of that in Florida. That's a great example of one of the ways the system fights against certain candidates, those that are truly not financed by big corporations. And so then obviously, as someone's saying, I didn't win, you can always learn from your mistakes. So
Sure.
is there anything you can look at? Yeah. What would you do differently?
I mean, the first thing you have to understand about running for office is that no matter how much you think you know, you truly do not know. The thing that I thought I knew was policy, which I did. The thing that I did not know was politics, right? Because there is an end game that is played. It's a patronage game. And I didn't understand the patronage game. I didn't understand whose toes out. I offended Black female elected officials in Florida because I ran for Senate and they believed that they were going to be the first Black woman to run for Senate 20 years from now. They were offended that they thought I jumped the line. I didn't jump the line. There was nobody in line.
That sucks.
Right? I could literally write volumes on
all right,
the things that I learned.
Let's do that.
I did wrong.
Pam, we're going to do that. We're going to take it offline. So when you guys watch this, stay tuned. It's possible. I'm very convincing. Uh, all right. So Pam, I kept you for 20 minutes. It seems to be like a good amount of time. That's where we seem to be ending each of our shows. So thank you so much for coming on. This was as great as I thought it would be. Do you have any closing statements for the global warning audience?
I mean, the world is aflame in so many different ways. The one thing we cannot afford is to check out and to believe that it is impossible to sort it back out. So, every ray of hope should be clinged to with all of our strength. And Mamdani to me is a ray of hope.
Perfect. Thank you. That was a great close. Everybody, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that stuff. I'll be back in a week, and make sure to follow Pam wherever she is. It's a simple Google search away.
I'm on Blue Sky, Pam Keith, DC.
Perfect.
War is immoral, poverty is immoral, racism is immoral, police brutality is immoral, oppression is immoral, genocide is immoral, imperialism is immoral. This country represents all those things.